On today's Retro Tech Repair, we're going to be doing an RGB mod and a power supply mod on this Sega Master System II, and we're going to be using a thermal camera to see if the power supply mod made any difference. So I bought this Sega Master System II spares or repair on eBay, and I plugged it in, connected it up to a TV. Didn't come with a power supply or a RF lead, but when I added those things to it, it worked just fine. So I'm thinking, well, what can I do with this then? It's working fine, but I did buy it to feature it on the channel. But unlike the first generation Sega Master Systems, it doesn't come with any kind of composite or RGB out, only a RF out. So I thought, okay, well, you know what? Let's do a mod. So I bought this little mod kit for it. It says it's an RGB mod kit. Came from Consoles Unleashed. And this is kind of their high-end kit. They have a number of different kits. This, I think, is their high-end RGB kit. I'm going to take a look at that in a minute. Also, I think I'm going to try and do an upgrade to the linear regulator in here and replace it with a switching regulator, which should hopefully make it run a little cooler. But first of all, let's get it opened up and see what's inside. It does look like it's just a normal Phillips screwdriver on the back, so that's good. Nice little click when I undid that suggests that no one's been in here before. No special kind of security screws or Torx drive bits required. That's it, I think. So maybe this is kind of caught there, is it? Yeah, there we are. So then let's take the RF shield off here and see if we can get further inside. Looking inside then, we have a 7805 voltage regulator, UHF modulator, original Zilog Z80 CPU, a Sega chip, not sure what that is, a Sanyo chip, and then another 2 Sega chips, and then a couple of NEC chips as well. These capacitors look a bit weird, don't they, at these kind of strange angles, but I suppose that's how they left the factory, because I do genuinely think that I was the first one to open this up. Let's get the remainder out of its RF shield here. I bet these go straight through to the plastic on this port, don't they? Let me try. Yep, that was it. Silly me. Hopefully I didn't do any damage to the board, but now we can get it free. So I think before I get too far into soldering this and doing the modulator replacement and upgrade, I'm going to plug it in and see how warm this 7805 is getting. Let's try that. I've wanted a thermal camera for absolutely ages because I think it's going to be a fabulous tool for me when I'm doing repairs. And as luck would have it, I've recently been gifted this Thermal Master P3 thermal camera for my mobile phone. I know that promotional segments in my videos aren't always welcome, but it's thanks to people like Thermal Master that you have these videos at all. So they really do deserve a couple of minutes for us to take a look at it. So yes, a nice box, a Thermal Master 8mm macro. All OS focusing thermal camera. Okay, so I guess it works on Android and Apple. I only have an Android mobile phone to test it with, so we're going to be testing it with that. So it seems to come in its own little case, which is quite nice, isn't it? I quite like that. Comes with a USB-C, which is perfect. That will plug straight into my phone, but I guess there is an adapter if you have a Apple style connector as well, though. If you did do that, I suppose it would stick out from the phone quite a lot, but without it though, I have an Android phone, as I say, it's going to plug straight in. I'll take a quick look at the instructions and maybe there's an app to download and we'll get it set up. So there was an app to install, but I just downloaded it straight from the Play Store. I didn't need to go to the manufacturer's website or anything like that. And although the manual was well written in many languages and seemed pretty comprehensive, I didn't really need to refer to it because the use of the device is pretty intuitive anyhow. The ring that we thought was a focus ring is a focus ring and can be used to get pretty high quality images, as you can see here, and I was impressed by the sensitivity and resolution of the camera. When I move my hand away, it can even see the handprint that was left behind. There's a range of different colour options to enable you to visualise the heat. Of course, you can make recordings and take snapshots directly to the phone too, and there's even an on-screen indication of the temperature that's been measured. If you're interested in getting a camera like this for yourself, there's an affiliated link in the video description, and at the time of recording, Thermal Master have some Black Friday deals running, which are going to save you more money still. For now though, let's get back to our upgrades. Well, it's been 5 minutes now, and as we can see, our regulator's up to about 40 degrees, but it's still not too bad. So I thought for a while it wasn't going to be worth doing the upgrade to the linear regulator, but in the end, I think the temperature got up to about 45 degrees, and I decided that probably I'd go ahead and do it anyway. After all, the linear regulator is quite old and still quite inefficient. Hats off to Sega though for the thermal efficiency of this machine. When compared to the Amstrad GX4000, which I also own, we can see that there's a significant difference, with the GX4000 being at around 52 degrees. Anyway, we'll put upgrade to switching regulator back on our to-do list, and for now, let's press on with the RGB mod. And the first task is to remove the old RF modulator. There are some pretty beefy soldering joints holding the RF modulator to the board, and of course it wants to sink quite a lot of heat, so I had to turn up my desoldering tool pretty high. Eventually though, I did manage to get the majority of the solder out of the joint, and finished off with some desoldering braid and my soldering iron. I then gently pried the modulator away from the board. Here is the console unleashed kit, and it has maybe 3 or 4 major components. All of the clever gubbins is on this little board here, and then there's a connector and 2 other boards which are really about mounting that connector and the pins to mount it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the instructions online, and I think that starts by soldering these 2 pieces together. So I'm going to try and hold these 2 using this thing. There. Alright. The pins that I have, at least that came in my kit, are asymmetrical, so since these 2 have to go through the board, I'm going to put them through this way. I don't know if you can see this on the camera or not, but the pins have a little collar on them that stops them sort of dropping through the board. So we'll put them on with that facing towards the top. Okay, stage 1 I think is more or less complete. One of those pins isn't quite straight. That's a little frustrating. In fact, many of them aren't quite straight, but they're going in kind of diagonal cut holes, so maybe we'll just try that now and see if they fit. Almost. It's like one of them might be a little bit off. Oh. Well, it's not square, and I think that will annoy me, so I'm going to try and fix that. Let's take a look at these pins. Yeah, they're all slanted off, so that may be the angle that I had them at originally, I don't know, but that is not going to work out for me, so I'm going to have to do something about that. I'm just going to have to unsolder them and do those again then, I guess. Shame. So some of the problem is that the diameter of the pins is so much smaller than the holes that they need to go through, and this allows a lot of movement between the location of the 2 boards. So I did have to desolder everything, which was a bit of a fuss, but then to reassemble it, I placed everything in situ on the main printed circuit board of the Master System II. I think that will still come away. Maybe. There we are. And we'll get that cleaned up with a little bit of IPA, and then who would know it had ever happened. So, up next then is to solder this into the board. So now that we've got it more or less straight, we can do that. Great. This board is dissipating a lot of heat. Not surprisingly, really. So a couple of big ground planes there. Right, well, I'm going to have to really up the temperature on my iron, I think. I don't really like to do that, but I think I'm going to have to do that. So we're going to go to like 400, 450, I think. We'll try again. Okay. Right, well, we're going to keep the iron hot, so to speak, because the next job, I think, is to solder in this connector onto these kind of ground tabs here, which, you know, isn't going to be that straightforward either, I don't think. So with that in situ, we'll see if we can get some heat. I think I might try and hold that in with some Kapton tape. Okay. So I think once we've got one in here, we'll probably be able to solder the others without too much fussing. So let's do that. Well, gravity's not acting on my side there, so I'm going to prop this up against something. Okay, and I'm going to put some flux on here to help it flow as well, I think. Okay. Now that's in situ. It's not going anywhere, I don't think. We'll try the same on the other two edges. Well, I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to turn my soldering iron down while I remember, give it a moment to kind of normalize it to a more sensible temperature, and we'll go ahead and get that cleaned off again with some more IPA. So up next then is installing this board, which has all of the active components on it, and I think it just sits kind of like this on top of the connector. Yeah, make sure that's flush, and then I'm going to go ahead and solder that up. I'm going to use some slightly thinner solder than I did last time. I think this is 0.5 of a millimetre. The other one was a little bit thicker than that, let me think, 0.8 of a millimetre. So this 0.5 is much better for me for this kind of more delicate work. All right, so that's the mod sort of installed, I suppose. See, I've got a little bit of solder on the face of the connector there, but I don't think it's particularly harmful. We'll go ahead now and we'll get those solder joints cleaned up again with some more IPA. So now the fun really starts, and I need to do some mod wires. Now on this version of the board, they're mainly in this kind of region here, so I'm just going to cut a few that are about the right length and take it from there. And I'm going to solder these now onto the various spots on this little IC here. Surface mount. I'm not thrilled about having to do this, but you've already seen how my soldering skills are so far. Yeah, this is going to be fun.
Well, fun was one way to describe it, I suppose. I have to admit I found this process quite frustrating. Perhaps the mod wire I had picked was too thick, or perhaps my skills just aren't up to the job, but even under the microscope I had significant difficulty getting the wires to solder to the pins of the IC. Eventually I did manage to get everything connected up by holding the wires in place using Kapton tape at first and then soldering each connection one by one. And then, more relieved that it was over than proud of what I'd accomplished, I again made reference to the Consoles Unleashed website and made this terrifying discovery. Yes, I'd soldered onto the pins of the surface mount IC that are needed for the passive modification. But my kit is for the active mod, and although I wasn't 100% sure whether those wires needed to be soldered to the more spacious IC below or directly onto the pins of the resistors as shown in the figure, one thing was for sure, and they did not need to be soldered onto this tiny little surface mount chip that I had soldered them onto already. So after a big sigh and a particularly strong mug of tea, I removed all of the bodge wires that I'd already soldered in and soldered them instead to the legs of the resistors as shown in the diagram. And then with a Mega Drive SCART cable bought off Amazon, we can get everything hooked up and give it a go. And it works really well. To be fair, the RF signal from the old Master System was pretty good to start with, but the difference here is very noticeable, with super bright and super crisp graphics and lovely clean sound. So all that's left now then is our switching regulator mod, and this is very easy indeed. The switching regulator that I bought is a drop-in replacement for the 7805 that's there already in the board. The only challenge here is that the part is designed to be mounted vertically, and in our Sega Master System, it's laid flat. So I unscrew the original 7805 from its heatsink and desolder its pins from the printed circuit board. I then remove the right-angled header from the printed circuit board of the drop-in replacement that I bought, and replace those with straight pins exiting the rear of the board. I use a double-sided adhesive pad to hold it in place, solder it up, and we're all done. A quick peek with the Thermal Master P3 shows that we're now at 34 degrees where we were at, I think, 41. Was it worth it? Well, maybe not in this case, but an interesting experiment nonetheless. But that does just about wrap it up for our Sega Master System II for today. I hope that you've enjoyed the video and that if you have, you'll consider hitting subscribe, like, or the new hype feature. And until next time, I'd just like to thank you so much for watching Retro Tech Repair.
Now the plate, oops. Now the back. And off we come with the lid.